Hey everyone, and welcome to this edition of Just Parlays. I'm Jim Williams, your host, and joining us, of course, the man, the legend, Chris King. This is our last edition of the show in 2021. It's been a very interesting year, and we're going to go out with a bang. We got a bunch of things going on, Chris. Today, the first of the two CFP games, and Miami. They call it Miami Lakes. That's a brand new area of Florida they created because it's out in the middle of the 95 corridor. But hey, who are we to mess around with the people who name cities in Florida? So
we're saying Crockett and Tubbs never went there because it's brand new.
True, that's true. So at the Hard Rock Stadium, where our buddy Bill Bender and Jack Hewlett are today, let's talk about the Capital One Orange Bowl.
Right, and we got number 2 Georgia facing number 3 Michigan. Both teams finished the year 12-1. The difference, Michigan won the Big 12, or not the Big 12, the Big 10 title after they beat Ohio State in the regular season finale. Then they turned around and blew out an Iowa team that is offensively deficient. Mm-hmm. Georgia finished 12-1. They were undefeated going into the the SEC title game and got lit up by eventual Heisman Trophy winner Bryce Young and the Crimson Tide, and we'll get to them in a minute. The big key here is we know both teams like to play what some people like to call big burly man ball, where they want to run the ball down each other's throats. The problem here for Michigan, I mean, they were 10th in the league in rushing offense, averaging 223.8 yards per game, and they were 13th in scoring offense, but they're facing a Georgia team that was second in the nation in total defense at 254.4 yards a game. They're third against the pass. They're fourth against the run, giving up only 82.2 yards per contest. And as we know, Georgia was number 1 in the nation when it comes to scoring defense, even after giving up those 41 points in the SEC title game. They still only gave up an average of 9.5 points a game. The big issue for Michigan, like I said, is going to be trying to move the ball. They like to run that inside zone, and we know that Georgia can stop it very effectively with their front seven. The question will be, can Hassan Abdullah and Blake Corum find holes in the Georgia defense? Because you really don't want to have Cade McNamara throwing the ball if you don't have to. On the other side, Georgia's in a similar situation. We thought they might make a QB change from Stetson Bennett to JT Daniels. Apparently, that's not going to be the case. They're going to stick with Stetson Bennett here. Dan Lanning, of course, the defense coordinator for Georgia, he's going to take the Oregon job after this game. So you have to wonder, is he focused on getting Georgia to the national title game, or is he already thinking about what's going to happen in Eugene? My big thing is we've seen a lot more from Georgia on both sides of the ball than we've seen from Michigan. We saw Michigan struggle against the run against Michigan State when Kenneth Walker III had that 5-touchdown game to beat the Wolverines. Georgia's 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 after throwing for more than 280 yards in their last game. They're 6-2 against the spread in their last 8 bowl games. Meanwhile, Michigan 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 neutral site games as an underdog, and they're 0-4 against the spread in their last 4 bowl games under Coach Jim Harbaugh. Obviously, this is going to be a hard-hitting physical ball game, but this comes down to the been there, done that mentality. Georgia's been here before. This is the first time Michigan's been in the CFP. Right. It's the biggest game of Harbaugh's coaching career at Michigan.
Right.
Is his team going to be ready to answer the bell?
I don't know. Here's what I mean. Michigan's biggest, I guess you could say, calling card for this game, or the headline, if you will, is they beat Ohio State. Ohio State at the time had the most proficient offense in the country, okay, with C.J. Stroud and that whole gang. So that's not for nothing. That's a good thing. The uncertainty at quarterback for Georgia means, as you said, both guys are going to just strap it up and try to beat the living crap out of each other on the line of scrimmage. And whoever wins the line of scrimmage is likely going to win the game. Right. This definitely has the smell of an under, whatever it is, whatever they're up there. That's looking at. Kirby Smart, Kirby Smart is his. It's funny. This game is really kind of a prove it to me for two coaches. Kirby Smart has to get by and get to a national championship game because all of the people have said year in and year out, Kirby Smart in Georgia, year in and year out, they have the kind of team that could get to a national championship. Yet they've never gotten it. Okay, this is the first time they've been in the conversation in the CFP, and it's big for Kirby. We all know about the Harbaugh thing, right? Jimmy has done everything humanly possible and finally beat Ohio State and finally got them there. So to me, this is kind of which coach can prove the theory of the case that they actually are elite college coaches. And nobody's taking anything away from what they do during the regular season, or for that matter, what they do during the bowl time. But they haven't been on this stage. Neither of them have been on this stage before.
Well, just to correct you, Jim, Kirby Smart did get Georgia there in the 2017 season.
Oh,
they
okay.
lost 26-23 to, you guessed it, Alabama.
Right, yeah. Okay, my apologies. He lost to his mentor.
In that game, they blew a 13-0 halftime lead to lose in overtime.
Right. Seems to be kind of par for the course for a Georgia team. But, yeah, to me, Georgia's a better team. But, again, both of them are good. And to me, this game is going to really be a close game and a tough one. And if you're a fan of – I know you're a fan of a number of different broadcasters over the years. This could be – because we don't know if Michigan advances or not. If you want to, TuneIn Radio carries Michigan football. Today's game is Jimmy Brandstetter, who's been the voice of Michigan football for almost 40 years, and Dan Dierdorf, who signed a 4-year deal to be part of the Michigan broadcast team once he left CBS. It's really I would suggest just tuning it in for a little while just to listen to those two guys call the game. They really know Michigan football, but they are incredibly good, and they're not homers. They're incredibly good announcers, and to hear Dierdorf and Brandstetter, it might be for the last time, definitely worth the shot. Wes Durham, who calls the games on Georgia Network, he's a good old Southern boy. You got that drawl, you got that, if ever there was a perfect guy to do Georgia football, it was Wes Durham. So either way, if you want to turn off the ESPN announcer crew tonight, or tonight at the Orange Bowl and listen to it a little bit on the radio, it's going to be a little delay. I get it, but it might be worth giving it a shot. So.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, this game's going to be won in the trenches. If Georgia can move Aiden Hutchinson and company to create some holes, that's going to go a long way for the Bulldogs.
Right.
Same token, Michigan's offensive line, they're going to have to find a way to move that front seven and give Abdullah a place to run in that inside zone, or get Corum to the outside, because he's obviously Corum's the speed guy. He's
right.
He's the lightning to Abdullah's thunder, going back to the Gregory Morris, Larry Zonka, Jim Kick days of the Dolphins. You're not going to run Corum between the tackles if you can help it.
The other. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was going to say. So if Michigan can't move the ball on the ground, Harbaugh is going to be in a world of trouble early on in this game.
Yeah, and I think I agree 100% with you that neither of these teams want to. Neither of these teams want to throw the ball, if at all possible. They're going to stay as far away from throwing it as they possibly can. So, all right, well, that's the late game. I screwed up because we really originally had to say, let's talk about the early game. So let's now go to Jerry's world in the Metroplex down there in Dallas, where Alabama and Cincinnati pose a very unique and very interesting matchup.
Right, and like you said, it's the Cotton Bowl Classic down there. Alabama 13.5-point favorite. I actually like them here over Cincinnati, which is surprising with the line being so high. But it really hasn't moved, which you have to wonder. Even after John Mechie was ruled out for the year as the other wide receiver across from Jameson Williams, things haven't moved at all. Alabama, they came out in the second half against Auburn in the Iron Bowl. Everybody gave them up for dead at halftime in that game. They came back and won. They bombed Georgia in the SEC title game to get to 12-1, and that propelled them from being, I believe were they number 4 in the rankings before that?
Who?
Weren't they at the bottom?
Alabama?
Yeah.
Alabama was 4, and Alabama was 4, and ironically, Cincinnati was 3 at that time.
That's what I thought. So and then Georgia was 1. So once they beat them, they all of a sudden jumped to the top of the ladder.
Right.
Cincinnati, they're the first group of 5 team to end up in the CFP. Somewhere Gene Smith is eating his words, talking about we don't play the little sisters of the poor. Right. Cincinnati, they went to South Bend. They beat Notre Dame earlier this season. That's probably their signature win, other than winning the AAC title game against Houston. Mm-hmm. But you're facing an Alabama team that suddenly came to life after getting beat up in the first half of that game against Auburn. They struggled against Arkansas. They struggled against LSU. But for all those issues, you look at the numbers, they're still 6th in the nation in total offense at 495 yards a game. They're 7th in pass offense. They average 42.5 points a game. When you struggle and average 42.5 points a game, you're obviously doing something right, because I know there's plenty of teams out there in the FBS that would love to struggle and put up 42 a game.
Right.
Now, obviously, Bryce Young, he's the Heisman Trophy winner, but he's going to have his work cut out for him if he tries to throw the ball. Cincinnati's 2nd in the nation against the pass. They only give up 167.5 yards per game. They've got 3 great defensive backs, Sauce Gardner, Kobe Bryant on the corners. Brian Cook is rated as actually the best man-to-man individual defender in the secondary in the nation. So that's something they're going to have to watch out for if they try to go down the seam. With that said, I'm not sold that Desmond Ridder can keep up with Bryce Young and Alabama's offense. Sure, he did a great job this season, but they struggled at times. I mean, let's look at some of the games that Cincinnati played this season where they didn't look all that great. They beat they beat Temple. Okay, that was a blowout. But they beat Navy by 7, and it was a down year for Navy. They beat Tulsa by 8 at home. Those are 2 teams that you would have thought they would have blown right out of the water. But they struggled for a long time against South Florida before putting that one away.
Right.
Now, obviously, I'm not going to take anything away from any of those teams. They're decent mid-major teams. Navy had a down year, but they won. They beat Army in the Army-Navy game to make it worthwhile for Coach Ken, as Pete Medhurst would tell us. Mm. But none of those teams that they beat, not even Notre Dame, not even Houston, none of the teams that they beat are at a level of what Alabama brings to the table. And it's like you said in the pre-show, Jim, Alabama, they don't just go, 11 deep on both sides of the ball. They go 20, 25 deep on both sides of the ball. You lose a guy, you plug somebody else in. Cincinnati doesn't have that kind of ability where if they have somebody go down, they can't just plug somebody else in that's going to be just as good. And that's a big issue for the Bearcats. Obviously, one big thing, too, for the Cincinnati, they can't afford to go 3 and out, and they can't afford to let Alabama drive down the field and put touchdowns on the board. Cincinnati goes 3 and out on 29% of their possessions this season. That is 72nd in the nation. You can't afford that here, because if you go 3 and out on back-to-back possessions, you could find yourself down 2 touchdowns in a hurry. Now, Nick Saban, he might change things up. You might not see Young throw as much here because of the fact that Cincinnati has such a great secondary. But they've got the ability to run the ball. You've got Brian Robinson. You've got other guys that you can hand the ball off to in there. Trey Sanders is good. Roydell Williams has been effective. They're not just one guy. They can roll guys out at you in waves. It's basically like the Tampa Bay Lightning in hockey with their forwards. That's what Alabama is offensively. Cincinnati's going to try to take Jamison Williams out of the equation. Obviously, good luck with that. He caught 68 passes for 1,445 yards and 15 touchdowns. But guys like Slade Bolden, Jaleel Billingsley, Trayshawn Holden, those guys are going to have to step up because we know that John Mechie was lost for the season after he got hurt in the Iron Bowl. That's a big loss. He caught a team leading 96 balls for 1,142 yards and 8 touchdowns this season. How Cincinnati attacks Alabama and tries to make them one-dimensional is going to be a big factor in this game. But ultimately, I think when you get right down to it, Alabama's too deep. They got too much talent. And it's the same thing that we just talked about with Harbaugh. Nick Saban has been to the top of the mountain 6 times now. And Luke Fickell, he was there with – he's been to the CFP, but that was as his defensive coordinator at Ohio State. He hasn't done it on his own. And he doesn't have the talent as deep as he had at Ohio State and Columbus there. You have to look for Alabama to show why they're ranked number 1 and why they've been so dominant in the CFP era by getting a win here.
You know, one of that would concern me if I was Cincinnati is that Nick Saban and his staff has had almost 3.5 weeks to go over every inch of Cincinnati's game tape and really focus on this game. And I mean, as you said before, this is a been there, done that. They know what they have to do. The best win for Cincinnati is a win over South Bend over the Irish. And ironically, it's quite possible had they lost that game that the Irish would have been the 4th team in this mix. It's possible that would have happened. So
that's true.
I don't think that Luke Fickell and the Cincinnati Bearcats are going to be in awe stepping on the field today against Alabama. That said, I don't think I agree with you. I don't think that they're going to be prepared to face the kind of strength. And in the 3rd and 4th quarter, it's going to be tough. It's going to be worn down because they're just going to have too many. There's a reason why they call it the Crimson Tide. When the tide comes in, it's hard to beat it. And
that's true.
It'll be fun. And look, love the AAC. What Mike Oresco's done there is truly amazing. He's put together phenomenal programs, made that whole conference very good.
He got rid of UConn.
Yeah, it ain't the ACC. I mean SEC. I'm sorry, it ain't the SEC. So we will see. But before we get there, let's talk a second about our friends at Caesars Sportsbook. Now, we have a deal. Winners and Whiners has a great relationship with Caesars Sportsbook. Now, here's the deal, okay? If you have not yet worked with Caesars and their sportsbook, it's a fantastic group of people. They do everything professionally. It is wonderful. They make the interface, everything is really easy to work with, okay? So here's for you first-time, wagerers out there. What we want you to do is we want you to go, and it's linked in our show box below, to find out where you can use what state you're allowed to use the online betting book and the app. Okay, so once you establish your account, use the promo code Video Winners. Okay, Video Winners, and here's what they're going to do for your first time bets. Okay, they will win, lose, or draw, match your bet all the way up to $1,001. Let me tell you how that works again. Use the promo code when you sign in, Video Winners. Okay, that's our promo code for you. And the sportsbook at Caesars will match your first bet. As I said, win, lose, or draw, up to $1,001. Okay, and as Chris says, you're always looking for free money. This is definitely free money. Now, it's a perfect way for you new gamers to get into the online betting service. You get it, as I said, you get the opportunity to use their app or check out the online. There's so many fascinating and fun options that they give you there, which includes even in-game stuff. So by all means, check out the Caesars Sportsbook. All the information is in our show box below, and take advantage of that wonderful deal that they've got for you by using our promo code Video Winners. All that information in our show box below, and we'll hit on that a little bit later again. For right now, check that out, and of course, the most important thing to remember is you must be 21 years or older to play. And as always, and Chris and I have told you this from the beginning, always gamble responsibly. Okay? All right. So, meanwhile, back at the ranch, Mr. Christopher, we are headed to where,
Where do
sir?
you want to go? Do you want to do the association? Do you want to do the pond?
Well, we might as well go backwards in that way. So let's go to the association. We're going to go to the NBA. And here's where we are there.
Right. We've got the Cavaliers at home tonight against the Hawks. Cleveland only favored by 1.5 points, which seems strange when you look at the fact that, the Hawks are 15-19 this year, Cleveland 20-14. And meanwhile, the Hawks have 11 guys in the protocols. 2 others are out with injuries. Last I checked, and I will double check here real quick on the latest NBA injury report to see if there's any new moves that nobody's told me about. But as of this morning, they still had 11 players marked as out. Let me see what the latest says here. According to the league, the Hawks are still listed as having, let's see. Where are they? Yes, they still don't have Bogdan Bogdanovic, John Collins, Sharif Cooper, Gorgie Deng, Malik Ellison, Danilo Gallinari, Malcolm Hill, Solomon Hill, Kevin Huerter, DeAndre Hunter, Jalen Johnson, Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot, Onyeka Okongwu, or DeLon Wright. They're all marked as out. Cleveland will get Jared Allen back tonight. He's probable as he's out of the protocols. The Cavaliers won't have Darius Garland, C.D. Osman, and then, of course, Colin Sexton and Ricky Rubio both done for the year. The Cavaliers are reportedly going to acquire Rajon Rondo because that's how desperate they are for a point guard. It comes down to Cleveland is second in the league in scoring defense at 101.8 points per game. They're 10th in field goal percentage defense, and they're third in three-point defense. Atlanta's 3-10 against the spread in their last 13 against teams with a winning record. They're 1-5 in their last 6 overall, and they're 0-4 in their last 4 on one-day arrest. Cleveland 6-0 in their last 6 at home against teams with a losing road record. They're 13-3 in their last 16 at home. And those last 2 lines tell you everything you need to know. Atlanta's 1-7 against the spread in the last 8 meetings with Cleveland, and they're 0-5 against the spread in their last 5 meetings in Cleveland. With so many missing pieces for the Hawks, I'm still stunned that the line's only 1.5. I mean, I get that Garland is out, and now Rubio's out, but you have Allen coming back. You've got Lauri Markkanen, you got Kevin Love, you got Evan Mobley. If they wanted to, they could run 4 7-footers out there and have the ultimate big man lineup instead of the small ball lineups that we see all the time now. Atlanta's obviously gutted. Trae Young and Cam Reddish can't do it by themselves. Look for the Cavaliers to come up with the home victory there to get back on track after losing the other night to New Orleans.
Okay, let's pop on to our next game.
And then we've got, for some reason, the Raptors at home over the Clippers. Both teams struggling this year. The Clippers 18-17. Toronto's 14-17. The big difference is the health of these teams. Paul George obviously out with that torn UCL in his elbow. Kawhi Leonard still out with a knee injury. Nick Batum has an ankle injury. So does Isaiah Hartenstein. Ivica Zubac is in the protocols. They're all out. Reggie Jackson is questionable as he tries to come back. Meanwhile, Toronto, they're actually getting healthy. They got Pascal Siakam back recently. Fred VanVleet, Scotty Barnes, and OG Anunoby are all out of the protocols as well, which is a boost for a Toronto team that was absolutely flattened last weekend when they fell 144-99 on the road to those Cavaliers that we just talked about. Let's face it, the Clippers, without George and without Leonard, I mean, just playing with George, they weren't very good offensively. You see they're 27th in the league in scoring offense at 105 points per game. Nathan, Paul George has a torn UCL in his elbow. He's out until mid to late January. If this was baseball, he'd be out for the season because he'd undergo Tommy John surgery, but fortunately, George doesn't have to worry about his spin rate. The Clippers 3-7 against the spread in their last 10 after a straight-up win. They're 2-8 in their last 10 after an ATS win. Meanwhile, Toronto 4-0 against the spread in their last 4 after a straight-up loss, and 4-0 in their last 4 at home. They are 7-1 against the spread in their last 8 against teams with a winning straight-up record, and Toronto 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 overall. This line has actually moved up, which scares me a little bit. It was 4 last night. It's up to 6.5 now. Even still, I don't have a ton of faith in the Clippers. They can play good defense, but they got by Boston the other night, 91-82, mainly because of the fact that Boston put up the biggest clank fest that I've seen since somebody was shooting tin cans out in their backyard. Boston was 4 of 42 from three-point range in that game, the second worst three-point shooting performance by a team that took at least 43s in a contest. I'd like to think that Toronto doesn't shoot 4 of 42 from 3 at home. Look for them to get the win over the Clippers, who can't wait until they can get some of these guys back on the floor and have some semblance of a normal rotation.
Chris, who would have thought, right, that at this point in the season, the 2 best basketball teams in Los Angeles would be USC and UCLA?
That's true. I mean, let's face it, we've talked about the Lakers being a dumpster fire. Right. And obviously now they're going to jettison one of their cheap guys for probably, like we said during the show or pregame, for half a ham sandwich and some stale chips, because that's about all you're going to get for Rondo at this point. And the Clippers, their problem is they can't stay healthy. I mean, obviously Leonard's been out since the playoffs last year and hasn't come back yet. George has been in and out of the lineup a couple times now, and they, their backup players, Jackson's been in the protocols. Luke Kennard has been up and down. Marcus Morris has been up and down, and they don't really have the kind of players that they had before. It's kind of like the issues that Washington had when they had Westbrook. They were top heavy and didn't have the back or the depth behind them. Mm-hmm. I bet you the Clippers still wish they had guys like Montrezl Harrell in their rotation now. Yeah,
let's go from Toronto to our next game with the Bulls.
Indiana. Now, our good friend Elliot was on here yesterday and told you that he's made a lot of money fading the Pacers, and you can't fault him for that. We told you the other night to take Charlotte, who was getting 3 points on the road in Indiana, and they picked up a 116-108 win outright. The Bulls 22-10 this year. Indiana just 14-21. Chicago's won 5 in a row since they came back from their COVID pause, including that home sweep of the Hawks earlier this week. Meanwhile, Indiana's lost 5 of their last 7. That includes a 113-105 loss to these same Bulls the day after Christmas in the Windy City. Things not looking good on the injury front if you are a fan of Indiana, as Malcolm Brogdon, who missed the last 3 games as it was with a sore hamstring, is out in the protocols, as is Chris Duarte, Isaiah Jackson, Jeremy Lamb. Keelan Martin is also in there now. And TJ McConnell, TJ Warren, both out with injuries. Warren hasn't played all season, so that's not really a surprise. McConnell had wrist surgery earlier this month. He'll be out an extended period. Now, the Bulls, they're without Lonzo Ball, Tony Bradley, Ersan Ilyasova, Alfonso McKinney, and Marko Simonovic. They're all in the protocols. Alex Caruso still out with that mid-foot sprain. And, of course, Patrick Williams, he's probably out until April after having wrist surgery for that torn tendon he suffered way back in early November. But let's face it, the Bulls still have DeMar DeRozan, who leads the league in fourth quarter scoring. They still have Zach LaVine. They have Nikola Vucevic. You have to like that trio. We've seen what the Bulls can do against mediocre teams, and let's face it, Indiana's the epitome of a mediocre team. The Bulls 4-0 in their last 4 after a straight-up win. They're 6-1 against the spread in their last 7 after an ATS win. Meanwhile, Indiana's 1-5-1 against the spread in their last 7 after a straight-up loss, and they're 1-5 against the spread in their last 6 overall. Let's face it, Indiana, they're bad. They played badly enough when they had Brogdon on the floor and Duarte, but now you're down to Karis LeVert and Domantas Sabonis carrying the load. They just don't have the firepower to keep up with a Chicago team that has piled up a ton of points. They scored 130 and 131 in their 2 wins over the Hawks this week. They put up 113 on Indiana Sunday. The Bulls are clicking right now, and it makes you think back to the days when Derrick Rose was the MVP a decade ago, and the Bulls were the number 1 seed. And then, of course, Rose tore up his knee in Game 1 of the Eastern Conference first round against Philadelphia. The Bulls went out in the first round, and then they kind of fit into irrelevance for a while. But the Bulls are back right now, and that's something that's it's good for the city of Chicago, and it's good for the league in general. Billy Donovan's done a great job up there with Chicago. Meanwhile, Indiana, keep fading them.
Right. They're not the team that was there when PG-13 played. All right.
Exactly.
So we go from
Or Rick Smiths.
That's true. That's true. We go from Indiana to our next.
Well, that's the end of the association, Jim.
The end of the association. Well, all right. Let me remove that for the moment, and we're going to go on Frozen Pond and take a look at some good NHL action coming up. And so here we go to the NHL.
Yeah, we got the Rangers going on the road to face Tampa Bay at the Amalie Arena tonight.
Oof.
The Rangers are 19-8-4, Tampa Bay 21-6-4 on the year. Both teams are coming off road losses to the same team. They both lost at the FLA Live Arena down in Sunrise in their previous game. The Rangers lost 4-3 on Wednesday as they melted down in the third period. Tampa Bay just melted down from the opening faceoff as they were routed 9-3 last night. You have to think that the Rangers will have the edge in goal as Igor Shesterkin gets the start for the Rangers against whichever minor league goaltender that the Lightning decide to play, whether it's Maxime Lagacé or Hugo Alnefelt. Really, it doesn't matter. I guess they couldn't get Manon Riom out of retirement.
Right.
He might have been just as good. The Rangers are fifth in the league in goals against at 2.58 per game. Meanwhile, Tampa Bay has given up 13 goals in their last two games. That's not a typo. They gave up 4 to Montreal in that overtime win on Tuesday night. They gave up 9 last night. The Rangers 9-2 in their last 11 against Atlantic Division teams. They are 13-3 in their last 16 against the Eastern Conference. 6-2 in their last 8 on Friday, and they're 5-2 in their last 7 on the road. If Tampa Bay had Vasilevsky in goal, hell, even if they had Brian Elliott in goal, I'd probably favor the Lightning here. But as we just saw last night, these two guys, Lagacé and Alnefelt, are not ready for the big time. Legacy has a .828 save percentage in his 2 games since being called up. You have to take the Rangers here as a slight underdog. That number is actually narrowed down. Last night they were going at about 130 plus 130 plus 135. It's come down, but you have to like them here just because I can't trust Tampa Bay's goaltending to save them.
No. All right, from the arena on the waterfront in Tampa, we go
to the Motor City.
Yep.
And it's the Capitals on the road to face the Red Wings. The Red Wings haven't played in over 2 weeks due to the pause due to COVID and then the holiday break. Washington 19-6-7. Detroit, let's face it, they've surprised some people. They currently hold the second wild card spot in the Eastern Conference, which nobody would have thought at the beginning of the season. Jeff Blashill doing a good job keeping that team afloat. You have to wonder if the Red Wings, though, are primed for a second-half regression. Washington fifth in the league in goals per game, 3.47. Detroit, despite having a winning record, they struggle keeping the puck out of their own net. They're 26th in goals against at 3.35. They also don't score all that much. The Red Wings come into this one having a goal differential on the season of, let's see how bad it is. Minus 16. They've only scored 88 times in 31 games this year. Those kind of numbers don't fly when you're trying to play against a team like Washington, who comes in with a plus 29 goal differential, having scored 113 times in 32 games. Washington 9-2 in their last 11 against the East. 48-19 in their last 67 as a road favorite. Detroit 17-44 in their last 61 against Eastern Conference opponents. They're 8-24 in their last 32 on Friday. Washington has won 6 of the last 7 meetings between these teams, including each of the last 5 at the Little Caesars Arena. Look for Ilya Samsonov and company to shut down Detroit and send the Red Wings to a defeat heading into 2022.
Oof. Tough night in the Motor City. All right, so from the Motor City, we roll on, and we're going west, young man.
Yep, we're going to head out to Sin City. The Golden Knights facing the Ducks. The Ducks 17-9-7. The Golden Knights 21-12. Anaheim's gotten points in 10 of their last 11 games, but 4 of those games were overtime losses. So they're 6-1-4 in that stretch. The Ducks without Sam Steele, Trevor Zegras, and Max Comtois all in the protocols. Meanwhile, the Golden Knights are minus Max Pacioretty, who underwent wrist surgery this week. His return timetable is unknown at this point. Mark Stone on injured reserve with an upper body injury. Goaltender Robin Leonard is questionable tonight. But Vegas, they've averaged 4.2 goals per game in their last 10. They're an explosive offensive team by any stretch of the imagination. They've piled up 120 goals in 33 games, which puts them right among the league leaders in goals per game on the year. Meanwhile, the Ducks, they've kind of struggled of late. They scored 1 goal the other night against Vancouver. By the way, it's a tough break for Bruce Boudreau as the Canucks suffered their first loss under his leadership last night, falling 2-1 to the Kings in a low-scoring affair.
Mm-hmm.
But back to the Ducks, they're 5-21 in their last 26 when their opponent puts up at least 5 goals in their last game. They're 5-16 in their last 21 on Friday. Vegas has won their last 5 against Western Conference opponents. They're 5-1 in their last 6 against teams with a winning record. And the Ducks have struggled in this head-to-head series. They are 4-18 in the last 22 meetings. They've won just once in their last 9 trips to the T-Mobile Arena in Vegas. Based on that and the fact that their top scoring guys in Zegras and Steele and Comtois are all out, you have to like Vegas to keep on rolling into the new year as they pick up the home victory there.
Yeah, it's like they have been playing much. We've talked about Vegas and how well they're playing on a consistent basis, and you just New Year's Eve in Vegas, you're really going to bet against Vegas? I don't think that's a good play.
I guess if you're hardcore and you're dead or you feel like throwing away some money, you could.
That's true too.
But you could just do that at a casino and save yourself the aggravation.
I was going to say, you don't have to go to the T-Mobile Arena to do that. You can stay on the strip and have more fun. All right, so we're getting ready to go to college basketball, correct?
Yeah, with the real exciting games that there were on the docket today. Take note, fans, that there was no massive games on the docket unless you wanted to count Western or High Point facing Kentucky. Nobody was really excited about that one. It tipped off at noon. So we're going to go to the Metro Atlantic, where the Quinnipiac Bobcats are going to host the Niagara Purple Eagles. Niagara 5-6 on the year. Quinnipiac 6-4. Quinnipiac's won 3 straight games, but they haven't played since beating Maine on December 11th. Niagara's 2-3 on the road. They hang tough, though. They lost by 3 to Xavier in their opener. They lost by 10 at Ohio State. But then they lost by 2 to Eastern Michigan, and that game made no sense because Eastern Michigan not a good basketball team by any stretch of the imagination. We've faded them several times on the show, and they've all panned out. It's going to be a big clash in tempo here. Quinnipiac likes to run. Baker Dunleavy's team 73rd in the nation with 71 possessions a game. Niagara likes to play slow, which is strange because I don't know if you know this, Jim. Niagara's coach, Greg Paulus, former Duke point guard, under, of course, Mike Krzyzewski. They are 336th in the nation with 64.4 possessions a game. Oof. It's kind of like watching Butler play only with purple uniforms. Quinnipiac is 122nd in scoring offense at 74.8 points a game. Niagara is just 265th in that category. The Purple Eagles 233rd in offensive efficiency, 340th in offensive rebound percentage at 20.5%, and they're 218th in 2-point shooting at 48.2. Quinnipiac's gone 5-2 against the spread in their last 7 after an ATS win. The problem with Niagara, they don't score a lot. They play at a slow pace, and they don't offensive rebound. So when they don't shoot well, they're not getting second chance points, and that doesn't bode well for anybody, especially a team that doesn't score a lot to begin with. Sure. Quinnipiac, they're not a sexy team. Nobody talks about, I think Quinnipiac's going to go to the tournament because you got to go through Iona and Siena and teams like that. Right. But I like the Bobcats -2. They're playing at home. Niagara has to show me that they can actually put the ball in the basket with a little more consistency before I can back them, even if Dr. Jack Ramsey and Hubie Brown were both there. Not to mention, former NBA player and Hall of Famer Calvin Murphy spent his college career at Niagara back in the 70s.
Well, there you go. All right, one more we got on the docket tonight.
Yep, and that's Charleston at home against Delaware in the CAA. Delaware's 9-5, Charleston 8-4. Delaware's lost 2 straight. They lost 80-78 to UNC Wilmington. Charleston's won 3 of their last 4. They beat Old Dominion 82-80 earlier this week. Pat Kelsey's team at Charleston, number 1 in the nation in tempo at 76.8 possessions a game, which is why they're 36th in scoring offense despite ranking 305th when it comes to shooting the ball. I guess when you get that many possessions, you can afford to shoot a bunch of bricks because obviously you're going to get the ball back.
Westhead routine,
Yeah, it's the Loyola Marymount.
All every 2.5 seconds or something like that.
Yep, or the 7 seconds, 7 seconds or less under Mike D'Antoni with the Suns.
That's true, yeah.
Delaware 1-6 against the spread in their last 7 on the road against teams with a winning home record. They are 3-10 in the last 13 on the road. Charleston 5-1 in their last 6 against teams with a winning percentage above 600. 4-1 in the last 5 on Friday, and the favorite is 7-2 against the spread in the last 9 meetings. And let's give a shout out to John, who said, "Thank you, Oakland. Yes, thank you, Steen and Reichel, for stealing our pick and putting it on your Bet the Farm. Come up with your own picks, guys." And you can tell them I said that.
They're coming up at 3 o'clock, so back to the window with Scott and Scott's coming up at 3 o'clock. Hey, before we talk about something, about what we're going to watch over the weekend, because there's some fun stuff there. Let's get back to the deal we have for you with our buddies at Caesar Sportsbook. Now, Winners and Whiners, you guys follow sports and you follow gaming, okay? If you have not used Caesar Sportsbook yet, you're making a big mistake. This is where you should be, okay? And the reason is they've got some things they're giving the people who are watching Chris and I today an opportunity, and it's a fun opportunity. Now, you see that promo code that's scrolling in front of you there. That's promo code Video Winners. What the folks at Caesar Sportsbook will do, if you're a first-time bettor and you're establishing an account there, win, lose, or draw, they're going to match the money you put into your account up to $1,001, okay? That's a phenomenal opportunity and a great way to get used to using the outstanding book that Caesars has. So by all means, open an account at the Caesar Sportsbook, use the promo code Video Winners, and as I said, because you're watching us today, because you're fans of Winners and Whiners, they're going to match your opening bet, win, lose, or draw, up to $1,001. So you cannot get a better deal than that, my friends. Take advantage of it. All the information is in the show box below. Remember, you must be 21 years of age to participate, and always gamble responsibly. And of course, you can't do this in every state, but if you click on the link down below, it'll tell you which state you can. So by all means, check it out. It's worth that opportunity and that time. Okay, Chris. Tomorrow, normally back in the day, you would look at a New Year's Day and say, well, that's the Rose Bowl and the Orange Bowl and the Sugar Bowl and all those wonderful things. I'm going to give you 2 that I think are going to be interesting tomorrow, 2 sporting events. And then I'd like your opinion on what you think. I think the game flying under the radar tomorrow is the Sugar Bowl with Baylor and Ole Miss. Baylor's played really well. They just upped their new coach. Their coach for another 5-year deal and extension to keep him there, and he's done a fantastic job. You got Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. These are 2 top 10 teams playing each other in the Sugar Bowl, and I think that it's going to be very entertaining. The other thing I think is going to be entertaining, if it makes it, is the Winter Classic, which is going to be played at Target Field in Minneapolis with the Wild in St. Louis. And game time temperature, okay, is expected to be 3 degrees air temperature in Minnesota, and which is approximately, for those of you watching us in Canada, approximately 13 degrees below zero Celsius. So it's going to be cold. The weather outside, my friend, is frightful. And I know that they've done games in Buffalo before, but I think this is going to be, without question, the coldest game that they've played, on the Winter Classic. So those are, for me, those are two things that kind of stick out on a day when, it used to be the big bowls were played. And of course, the Rose Bowl is going to continue to be played. Ohio State and Utah, and there's some good bowls. I'm not trying to slight any of those, but to me, those are the two things that stick out. How about you tomorrow?
Well, just to update the weather forecast tomorrow in Minneapolis, they're now projecting that the high temperature tomorrow will be -3.
Wait. -3. Okay.
Yep, -3, and the low will be -21.
Whoa.
Yeah, it'll definitely be an interesting game, and it's funny that you talk about the games that they used to play in Buffalo because, of course, I always go back to the 92 divisional playoff game with the Raiders where the game time temperature was 0 and it was 25 below with the wind, and you got Marv Albert talking about how it snowed 28 out of the last 29 days there.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, obviously it's going to be an entertaining game. It's going to be a cold game. They're going to have to heat the ice, apparently, up there in Minneapolis. But, I don't think any of the fans will care. They'll drink enough beer and stuff beforehand that it won't matter.
Right.
And but it's good to have an outdoor game. I mean, I'm also looking forward to the Heritage Classic later this year when they have the Maple Leafs and the Sabres up in Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be fun. And I agree with you about the Baylor Ole Miss game. The line hasn't moved. It's still Ole Miss by 1.5, even though the over/under has gone up from 50.5 to 57. But Dave Aranda, he's done a great job with Baylor. He led them to the Big 12 title, and they play some really tough defense, and they've got a good run game there. You have to remember one good big thing about Baylor's running back. He used to be a linebacker.
That'll help him.
Yeah, Abram Smith was a linebacker previously before last season. Played in 5 games, and then switched back to running back this year. He ran for 1,429 yards. That's going to be a big test for Ole Miss's defense because Ole Miss does not really like defending the run. But, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to seeing how Mike Freeman does in his coaching debut as the head coach up there with Notre Dame as they face Oklahoma State. Of course, the Cowboys coming up just short of that Big 12 title, or we might have been talking potentially about them being the 4th team had Cincinnati not beaten Houston.
That's
and
true.
Cincinnati not beaten Notre Dame earlier this year.
Mike Gundy has a good team there. All right, folks. We want to thank
he's a man.
What's that?
Mike Gundy's a man. Come at him. He's 40.
Right. All right, boys and girls. It's been a lot of fun. Chris and I thank you for joining us.
Jim, we haven't given the 2 and the 4 and everything.
Oh, man. Sorry, my bad. Don't go anywhere. Don't move anybody. Here we go. 2 for the money.
Don't you touch that dial. Yeah, I like tonight in the 2 teams. I like Washington -170 over Detroit. The Red Wings are rusty, and they're due to regress. They don't play well on their own end. Meanwhile, Washington's getting healthy, and they can score a ton. Right. Like we just talked about, the Bulls -4.5 over Indiana. The Pacers with a ton of guys in protocols. The Bulls have won 5 straight. They're putting up a ton of points. Charleston over Delaware. We talked about it. When you play the Paul Westhead style of offense, you can overcome your defensive deficiencies. And finally, Memphis -5.5 over San Antonio. The Spurs kicking off a 7-game road trip here. The Grizzlies coming off that win over the Lakers the other night when John Morant poured in 41. Look for the Grizzlies to come up with a home victory to finish the year atop the Southwest Division. It's been a nice year for the boys from Bluff City. Look for them to continue that here with a victory.
Okay, time for 4 for the money.
Right, and we talked about it before. The Cavaliers -1.5 over Atlanta. I'm still surprised it's that low. I get they don't have a guard, but hey, when you've got Evan Mobley and Laurie Markin and Jared Allen and Kevin Love that can shoot from the inside and go to outside, you're in good shape. Atlanta has nobody other than Trae Young, and he can't score. He's not going to pull a Wilt Chamberlain tonight and score 100 points.
Right.
You can put that down because I've been burned before with stuff. Thank you, Ron Harper, for Rutgers. I haven't forgotten. Like we said, Vegas over Anaheim. There's no point in betting against Vegas at home on New Year's Eve. You're just going to be throwing money away. The Rangers over Tampa Bay. Like we said, the Rangers have the big edge and goal here. They also have the day off, the day of rest in their favor, as Tampa Bay was routed last night in Sunrise. And the Knicks minus 5 over Oklahoma City. The Thunder have their coach Mark Daigneault in the protocols along with several players. I know Julius Randle is in the protocols for the Knicks, but you have to think the way Tibbs' team has played lately on the defensive end of the floor that they can cover the line against an Oklahoma City team that is deficient offensively.
Okay, time for the we did 4 for the show. Now, shot in the dark, we like to say for the late Jack Buck, go crazy, everybody, go crazy. And Chris will explain that you don't have to take all of them, but there's at least 2 or 4 that might be worth the time.
Right. That's like Jim said, you can pick what you want out of them. You can mix and match with the ones we put in the 2s and the 4s, whatever you want to do. Whatever works for you is what it boils down to. Like I said, I like Alabama minus 13.5 over Cincinnati. I know it's a big line. I know Cincinnati's a good team, but Cincinnati hasn't played a team like Alabama. And, until you've scaled that mountain, and if Cincinnati wins this game, I'll be the first to come back and tell you on Monday that I was wrong about it. I was wrong about Pitt yesterday. Of course, I didn't plan on them going to a third-string quarterback. But I don't think the Bearcats are ready for the depth of weapons that Alabama can roll out on both sides of the ball. Same thing with Michigan. Georgia's been here. Michigan hasn't. Michigan's going to have a hard time running the ball against Georgia. Georgia's going to try to run the ball against Michigan. Obviously, whoever controls the trenches is going to control this game. I just like Georgia a little bit better than I like Michigan here. We talked about the Raptors over the Clippers. I also like the Heat over the Rockets just because the Rockets have come back to earth after that 7-game win streak they had earlier this month and at the tail end of November. The Heat they're missing players, I get it, but somehow they find ways to win games. That's a tribute to Eric Spoelstra and what Pat Riley has done with that organization. I like the Rangers and Tampa Bay to go over 6, mainly because of the fact that we just talked about Tampa Bay's giving up 13 goals in 2 games and still don't have Vasilevsky or Elliott out of the protocols. That's a big dent to them. I look for Washington and Detroit to go over 5.5. Washington should have little problem solving Alex Nedeljkovic in goal, especially with the weapons that they have offensively. Look for Ovechkin to lead the way for the Capitals there. I look for the Ducks and Golden Knights to go over 6. Like we said, Vegas has averaged 4.2 goals a game in their last 10. Anaheim, the last couple of seasons, I ripped on them because they were always at the bottom of the league in scoring. They were barely averaging 2 goals a game. They're near the top 10 now, averaging better than 3 goals a game tonight. So look for this one to go over. Like we said, Quinnipiac minus 2 over Niagara. Niagara plays at a very slow pace. It's hard for them to catch up if they fall behind. Northeastern, Bill Cohn, guys are on the road. They'll get their first road win of the year. I like them over William and Mary, who have been brutal in non-conference play. They are 2-12 this season. Many things will get better for them in the CAA, but I don't like them here. And finally, in the game that nobody watches, nobody cares, but it's going to be on somewhere, and it was the only game to tip off at 4 o'clock. St. Francis of Pennsylvania, favored by 10 against Farley Dickinson, who's 0-10 on the year. Look for the Red Flash to bounce back from that disappointing loss to Robert Morris, who did us a favor yesterday by losing to Oakland, and pick up the win over Farley Dickinson. How far that team has fallen from their first 4 appearance and then winning that game a couple of years ago in the tournament for Greg Horrenda.
There you go. Well, I got ahead of myself because we went backwards today, folks. A little inside baseball here. we decided to lead with the bowl games, and normally that kind of leads to the 2 for the money, 4 for the show, and etc. So I overthought myself, to be honest, and quite frankly, it's not often that I overthink anything. But today I did my bad. So let me pick up on what I said before, and that was we appreciate, Chris and I, you being with us this year. We're going to have a full house of things going on all the way in 2022. It's going to be a lot of fun as we build the network here. So it's a lot of fun, and we wish you all a very safe and very happy New Year. Chris,
and we apologize that our guest couldn't make it. He got tied up at the Orange Bowl.
Right.
But we're going to drag him in here. It doesn't matter if it's July, and we're going to find out all the stuff that we wanted to know about bowl season.
That's right. The Birmingham Bowl will be addressed. There's no question about it. So, but again, Chris, it's been great working with you, buddy. I look forward to 2022 and all the good things that's going to happen. 3 o'clock, the boys are coming. That's right. Back to the window with Scott and Scott, and they're coming up right here on the Winners and Whiners Sports Betting Network.
It's on the call with their own picks for Bet the Farm.
Right. For those of you who want to move in there. Sorry, folks. It's been fun. Thanks a lot, and have a great and safe weekend. Enjoy all the fun stuff that's going on. We'll be back on Monday. We'll have plenty of opportunity to talk about what happened both in the bowl games as well as, of course, what happened on the NFL on Sunday. So until Monday, for Mr. King, I'm Jim Williams saying so long. We'll see you in 2022.